So my name is Adam Dean. Just a quick question. Like, how many of you guys are students? Anybody students? How many of you work in IT? All right. And how many of you work like solely in security? Awesome. Just curious. So, like I said, my name is Adam Dean. I am the lead of the Digital Forensics and Incident Response team. I've been with Great Castle for 5-ish years. And basically, our incident response team is somewhat small. So we have 4.5 people. That's not someone who's like torso up, but someone who does other things as well. And we're a 24/7 shop, so it's not uncommon for me to get called at 3 a.m. and be a little bit groggy, as I am today. So like I said, we're 24/7 on call. We've responded to ridiculous amounts of things. I think this year we're currently at, what is it, like 150 different incidents, which is a lot in the grand scheme of things, just because, again, we are somewhat of a small team. And we've responded to things, you know, HIPAA, PCI, whatever it is, breaches, internal investigations, so IT guy does something badly. We figure out what's going on and figure out what this person did. Different forms of fraud and theft. Office 365 compromise. How many, if you can, how many of you guys manage or use Office 365? All right, keep your hands up. How many of those environments you've seen, you know, phishing come in and then it goes, I'm spamming everywhere? No? Not a couple. All right. That's ridiculously common. And then just your normal infections and intrusions. So just for a little bit of, God bless you, just for a little bit of statistics. So this year, well, 2018, so not quite a full year, 60% of the incidents we see are in New York, and that's just, and mind you, this is just because our clients are mostly in New York. 43% are Office 365 related, so someone getting phished, you know, going everywhere. 10% result in breaches, most of those are Office 365 related. And 5% are ransomware, 15% are ransomware where it's multiple hosts and something else is going on besides someone just clicking something that they shouldn't. 8% because of RDP being open to the internet and someone having the password. And 10% are, and this is just in 2018, 10% are Eternal Blue related. So some of the things we've seen in the past year, Office 365 related. By the way, has anybody here heard of the ransomware variant SamSam? Yeah, so apparently, and I was looking around on images and I giggled to myself for a while. Apparently there's a French TV children's show and the main character of it is SamSam. So from now on, I'm going to refer to that TV show when referring to ransomware. That tends to cripple networks. See a lot of different malware. The one on the bottom left there is pretty interesting. And a ridiculous amount of Office 365 compromises. Really, my full-time job now is dealing with Office 365 compromises, and then sometimes I get to see cool infections. So, kind of going into, and I'm going to give 3 or 4 scenarios, depending on time. I like to leave a lot of time at the end because I don't really like PowerPoint and presenting too much. So 3 or 4 scenarios of different incidents that we've seen this year. And I'll have a couple weird ones at the end. So, matrix ransomware. Has anybody done matrix ransomware? Maybe? A couple? Cool. So typically, how ransomware works, someone gets a phishing email. They open the phishing email, and they're like, you know, you can't view this content, enable macros, and they enable macros, and then stuff gets encrypted, and they have to pay Bitcoin or do something. Typically, that's how it works. It's going to obviously infect whatever computer it's on, and possibly some file shares that it can access. It's not doing anything too crazy. It's pretty unsophisticated. Matrix ransomware works a little bit differently. So just a quick client overview. So clients in manufacturing have about 200 employees. They're a frequent flyer, meaning that they come to us once every few months. And they have a low IT budget, as it appears, and you can probably make that assessment later. And they don't have a security practice at all. So the initial email comes in, of course, on Friday at 4 p.m. Just saying, we have an urgent issue. They came in through remote desktop to one of our servers, and can you help us? So what we initially did, and since we're a consultant, we have to send different contracts and different things first. So what I tend to do is grab some information from them, whether it's logs or IP addresses or anything like that, just to see where I can help them without actually, touching their environment. So I found out they're running Windows Server 2008. They have a lot of ports open that probably shouldn't be open. And I'm guessing you might be able to guess where this is going. They only knew of 80 and 443 that should have been open. And this system was just on their network, and they just opened 80 and 443 to it, so if someone were to get into that system, they can get to everything. They had a fairly flat network. So while I'm waiting on the statement of works and all other contracts to be signed, I start looking at some logs, and I see that someone already peed into the system from to the administrator account. That was a domain administrator account. So I asked him, what's the password to that? Because I'm guessing you changed it. And it was nothing, it wasn't password. It was actually pretty long, which is interesting. Something that won't really be brute forced over RDP. And that's the first log that came in. Since they didn't have any logging retention, so their security logs and different logs only went back to the day before. They didn't, keep them anywhere else, which is always fun. So while I'm still waiting, I see that IP addresses are trying to connect over SMB, and the first one I saw was before that RDP connection, and this was actually a failure. It came from the Departamento de Cortes in Honduras, which roughly translates to the Department of Courts, which I don't know if that's a city or not, but I don't know, I thought that was interesting. I don't know if it was the equivalent of the Department of Justice and one of their systems got and came through that way, but okay. And then I saw the first known login, which was it was a nil session, or the anonymous login, and that was from France. So once we finally did engage in these two images on the bottom, I couldn't actually get images that didn't have their names splattered all over it, so I just got those online. So once we actually got engaged, we initiated that. I had a feeling that they came in through that Eternal Blue exploit, or using Eternal Blue. So we scanned their external network and saw that it was vulnerable to that specific vulnerability. So at least, we have a semi-good idea of what's going on. Now it's just a matter of proving it. And then once they got in, they started manually RDPing to each system and then just clicking on ransomware.exe. And that's how they got infected. The IT guy there actually was there while this was happening, and he kept the system that they came into only allowed one RDP session, so he kept kicking them off. He was seeing what they were doing, and that's how we were able to get the images, which is interesting, because they did this at 9:30 a.m. So the big issue with them is that, we went on site there. We're trying to help them figure out what's going on, how it happened, that kind of thing. And I said to the guy, I was like, if this ransomware brings down your business, you can definitely set up a museum. They had Windows 95 floppies and a bunch of Windows 95 computers. I kind of wanted to take one just to have it. I feel like those might be valuable someday. So basically, they installed a new firewall, and they thought, what would be a great idea if I can work on this system from home. So they enabled RDP, and they're like, I need to get to some file sharing, I don't want to do it over RDP, I don't know why. So they just enabled everything, which I wouldn't recommend. And then, the system was a Windows Server 2008 that they just never patched, or, the patches failed. So they got in that way, then used RDP to get back in with the interactive environment. And yeah, they're definitely running the best of technology. So incident number 2, Office 365. Now, there's a few of you out there who use Office 365. Did you happen to know, do you happen to ever use the API to Office 365, or you just do it all through the GUI? Use the API a little bit? Okay. Did you happen to ever hear that Microsoft had a hidden API that nobody knew of except a couple security firms? Anybody? No? All right. So basically, if you ever look through Office 365 logs, they're pretty useless, or at least the default logs. So they show you what time they logged in, what IP. Don't show you log off times, which is somewhat important because you want to know how long they were in there. You can't see what messages are viewed, what emails are viewed, what attachments are viewed, what search queries are run. And it only gives you, beyond that, it gives you some session IDs, some identifiers, and some, their user agent. So Microsoft had a API. It was like a thing that they didn't document about, but it was open to everybody. And they would actually let you see what attachments, messages were viewed, what time they were viewed, whether it was connected over IMAP or Outlook or just by the web, which is important if the person decided to email a bunch of confidential PII, PHI over their email, because then you can see what did they have access to. More detailed sessions and identifier search queries, pretty much all the things that I would love to have. So in June-ish, CrowdStrike and some guy behind a mask decided to let the world know that this existed, which in my mind, Microsoft should have already done that. But they, were able to find out that this existed, or they had access to it. So they let the world know. And there was a tool out there that you could use that that just lets you get access to this really awesome information if you actually, are worried about the attackers taking something. So they created a tool for it, which is pretty neato. So you have the API and you have access to it, realistically, you're going to report less breaches, you're going to have more evidence to report less breaches, and for us it means more happy people. So what do you guys, when this released, what do you guys think happened next? Think Microsoft let it go? No? They shut down access to it, and they were just like, yeah, nobody gets access now. So now nobody can access this data that's critically important. And I'm guessing there might be a few firms out there, I'm not too sure about that. So basically now you just have the basic audit logs. They added some stuff within SharePoint that lets you see what files are viewed, but nothing email related. So the client overview for this particular Office 365 phishing was college, about 2,500 students, and obviously they used Office 365. They called us saying the Nigerians are attacking. There's about 10 accounts compromised. They didn't have multi-factor enabled. They didn't have anything. It was pretty much just the default, whatever you get out of the box. And typically how these attacks are going to work is, phishing email comes in and it's just spamming everybody. So in their mind, there was not too much they can do, especially being at college, because they don't want to enable multi-factor because it's too, well, a lot of colleges don't want to, because it's too tiresome on the user to look at their phone. Some people don't have phones. They can't really, block anywhere because their students are coming from everywhere. So basically, you see a lot of colleges now who just deal with it as it comes, and they don't actually do anything to try to fix it, which is interesting and sad at the same time. So incident number 3, this is a weird one, I promised. So initial call, fairly large K-12 client called, and they wanted to basically fire the IT guy because they suspected that he was doing weird stuff, but they needed evidence to do that. So they called us saying, come in when you're not here. The person I was talking to was being very weird about it, which I suspected that she was in fact doing something weird, not this IT guy. So she's saying, come when he's not here. Don't let anybody in the company see you. But you can only come between 9 and 5 through Monday through Friday, because I don't work on weekends. Just copy the hard drive and get out of here. And she only wants, call on the cell phone, on her personal cell phone, not her work cell phone. She had 5 cell phones. So when we got there, she actually gave us ID badges. She was very worried someone was gonna figure out. I don't think I'm explaining enough how crazy is not the right word. Paranoid? Yeah, sketchy. She was being very weird about it, and we were thinking, and we had all the right paperwork in place. The higher ups knew that this was happening, and we had the lawyers involved and everything, and everybody knew, just because of how weird it was. So basically, we went in there quickly, just took an image of the machine, and left. Now, it's definitely not the cleanest way to get an image, because you should technically keep access of the machine itself. But if you took the machine, then the IT guy would know that the machine's missing, and then we wouldn't be able to do anything, I guess. So what we found 10 images on the desktop that took up about 7 gigabytes in size. They had mismatched headers. We'll come back to that one. He was using different browsers. He was trying to be sneaky about it. He was using Internet Explorer for normal work stuff, using social media on Chrome, Firefox, which might be against their policy, but isn't Fire You Right Now bad. And in Chrome, he was doing other things that did not involve social media or regular work usage. It was porn.
Quote unquote weird.
A lot.
Was it child?
No. If we saw anything illegal, we would just immediately shut it down and call the police.
Right.
We don't have the authority to conduct investigations like that. So he also was accessing other people's voicemails and tracking their phones. They had some management software on their phone, and he was just downloading a bunch of data about it and seeing where people were going. It was actually, the lady was not that paranoid. This guy was, he's being weird. And even on his email account, he had multiple inboxes for everybody's email accounts. He was reading their emails, and I would say it's an abuse of power. I don't know what they think. So going back to the files. So you had files, I think one was called Facebook photo or JPEG, untitled that I spelled wrong .jpeg, and other files. These are actually MP4 files in their home videos. Now again, these weren't home, videos that you'd see on America's Funniest Home Videos. They were porn. I have a feeling this is going to go online somewhere, so that's why. Yeah, I figured. Yeah, so basically, they successfully fired him. And then they're wondering, you know, can you guys hire us a new IT guy? I'm like, no, not really our thing. No, we didn't. So really, and this kind of goes with the statistics, I've found while writing various reports that we tend to give the same exact recommendations because the same exact things happen. And it really comes down to stop clicking on stuff. So, you know, give some sort of awareness, not just like awareness, like a boring lecture like we're having here, but like, you know, engaging. Some people do like games, which is cool. And with that is stop allowing users to click on stuff if you can, whether that's as simple as like sending stuff in plain text and emails, or using like safe links in Office 365 or whatever it may be, or you know, block certain domains or you know like top level domains. So you know, you don't deal with business in Russia or have any reason to go to Russian websites, and maybe good to block emails that contain .ru and various links. Second recommendation we tend to always give is just patch your stuff. Know that you're patching it, manage it, and then test it. So using whatever you use, whether you know it's Nessus or some sort of vulnerability management tool, making sure that you know the patches are applying and whatever was there isn't there anymore. And I'm fully aware that this list is like, yeah, no doubt. I would say 95% of the incidents we see, it's like if they just did that one little very basic thing, it all would have been avoided. Please stop with the RDP to the internet. It's not that RDP necessarily is bad, it's that someone's going to screw up, set a account, you know, with a password, or even in one incident that we saw before, the password, there was none, which actually, that was based on timing of how long they were brute forcing versus how long they actually got in. That actually took longer than having the password, which is,
Wow.
because I'm guessing the attackers in that case are like, that's stupid. Actually, in that scenario, it was a IT person who's like, I want to work from home now. I'm going to just, on the firewall, add a rule that allows RDP to my system. He forgot he didn't have a password on the administrator account, and that cost them some systems. That was a Sam case. They had, I want to say around 500-ish systems that went off. So stop at the RDP. If you need pretty much anything open to the internet, like try to segment it somehow. You know, have like put it in a DMZ, do something so when it does, or eventually does, or if it does, get compromised, you can't, you know, pop around to the other systems, which we never see having that in place. And then really just ask yourself questions like, do we care about India or Louisiana? Do people from Louisiana need access, you know, our stuff? And if it's no and never, just block. Louisiana's not everyone. I just wanted to pick on a particular state. But if you don't need access from a country or to a country, and a lot of the services like email and I don't know, other stuff is you know, hosted by Office or whatever it may be, or Microsoft. You know, you can probably just block them from on the firewall from getting into your internal network. Again, for colleges, that's difficult, obviously, because they need they have students from everywhere, which makes college awful to, not awful, it makes them a lot harder to help in incident scenarios because you know, try to give recommendations like, no, we can't. We have a bunch of students over here. We actually have a place out in, you know, whatever it may be where the attack came in, so we can't really block them, and we can't. We don't want to enable multi-factor because that kind of kills everybody. or at least their mood. So really, the toughest part is doing security and managing the end user experience. So, the best way to be secure is just shut the shit down, like we're done. And that goes for multi-factor, not really anymore. I feel like that should just be a thing now. And then finally, risk management, know what you're vulnerable with, know what you're vulnerable to, and prioritize them. So what's most important to us? If you have a, $5 billion asset and it's just like out open to the public, then you might want to take some steps on mitigating that first before caring about Jim's broken hard drive. And then finally have a response plan, test the plan, go through scenarios and see where the gaps are in the plan and try to fix the plan and actually use it in an incident. A lot of people will just do what they think is right, which a lot of times is actually not that far off. But when it is off, it's really off. We had a client once who had a adware, Malwarebytes popped up, you have adware on this person's computer. So they actually went to the server and just unplugging stuff because they thought they were done with. So when we tell them, yeah, it's only on this one computer and it's not even really a bad infection, or it's not, I don't even know if you'd consider it an infection, they're less than happy with the IT folks. So that is all I have, and I kind of intentionally kept it short, in a sense, just to try to answer questions and have a discussion, kind of, if I'm capable. Don't all raise your hands up, please. All right.
I got one.
Yes.
So these people, you're describing pretty understaffed IT departments, or maybe underfunded and things like that. When they've got 70 machines that get popped by Samsung or something like that, do they even have recovery types of things in place? Are these people prepared to re-image systems, rebuild servers, or are they just SOL?
So, yes and no. So people with, going back to the Windows 95 folks here, they were just manually they were just manually reinstalling Windows Server. And they didn't have images, they didn't have anything to actually help. Actually, when we were on site, they're like, yeah, we shut down one of the systems and it won't come back up. It was a Windows 2003 system. It might have actually been 2000 something else. But there was certain boot loaders that were encrypted as well, so it wouldn't boot back up. And I said, we need to recover those files, just to boot the system back up, we need these specific files from the setup disk. And that's when we went digging around and looking for the setup disk and saw the Windows 95 floppies, I don't know if you guys remember the old Word CDs. They look different. Yeah, they had a whole closet full of floppy disks. And so they had nothing. I would say, generally speaking, 30% of our clients don't, nothing. And really, when they have an incident that's kind of a come to Jesus moment, where they increase IT budget and they actually make a security program with or without us, and they actually start caring a little bit more, and then we just won't hear from them again. Some of our clients will do an incident and then they just drop off the face of the earth because they don't want to talk to me. And then they'll have another one in 6 months and call us. So, no. Yes, thank you.
I was kind of wondering, and you addressed it somewhat when we were in the IT guy scenario, talking about how you have your paranoid that is out to get you kind of subject. Like,
Yeah.
when you have an engagement like that, what kind of process do you go through to like ascertain that that person actually is like authorized to do the sort of things that you're?
Yeah, so firstly, it has to be, there are certain things that have to, check the box for us to even try to do something like this. One, being it has to be a system owned by the organization. It can't be a personal system. It can't, even if they have it in the, in there, we're not taking it. We tend to be extremely careful when those situations come up, just because it's very sketchy. So we will typically, make sure that the system's owned by them and all the components are owned by the organization. And then we will, get in contact with their lawyer, or we'll bring in a lawyer to make sure that everything's good to go. And then we will do the sketchy stuff and sneak in through air vents and take a computer and bring it back out. I'm not sneaking through air vents, but yeah, so in those situations are rare. They don't really come up that often. I probably, before this last one, I probably haven't seen it in a couple years, maybe 3 years. They're pretty rare. I think that's just because the organizations get an idea that they need to have policies and have processes. Otherwise, they're going to get screwed at some point, or they already did get screwed. And we should probably have this. We saw a guy who was getting sued by his organization, and because he was accessing a system that didn't have a password or anything on it, but they didn't have one of those warning things. And I believe, not a lawyer, but I believe that's actually the reason why the case was dropped. So like just simple little processes, policies will stop a lot of this. I think organizations are doing that more now, or I'm just being too optimistic.
So usually, like when you have someone come in that like wants to engage your services, is generally the point of contact is someone high up in the organization.
Yeah. So.
Not someone who's just first on the line. Or
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. Yeah. So if there's any chance of a breach occurring, so if anything was even touched that had confidential information for hospital to PHI, whatever it may be, we're going to strongly recommend getting a lawyer involved. And we have lawyer contacts that they can reach out to, or their insurance will, or whoever it may be. I completely forgot your question. Go ahead.
No, and again, I think you pretty much answered my question when you were talking about that scenario anyway, but I was just sort of wondering.
Who gets involved?
Yeah.
Yes.
And like what level? Is it like C-suite people you're in touch with?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so when an actual incident comes up, we're going to formulate a team both on our end and on their end. So we're going to have who's important on their end, not all the C-suite, chief marketing person, doesn't need to be involved. Human resources will be potentially their CEO if they don't have like a COO. Any legal, HR, things like that will be involved, as well as IT, CIO, CSO, whoever it may be will be involved. And that's kind of the command team, I guess I'll call it. And then, I'm working a lot with the IT people who can, who know their environment. I'm not just, coming and going, give me your stuff. If it's a situation like the IT guy there, then nobody knows. It's only going to be CEO and whoever the contact is. They're the only people that know.
Gotcha.
So, if your computer is ever on and then it just suddenly is off, think about what you did. That's the only thing we couldn't do is keep it on. Luckily, he had like a SD in it, so it imaged quicker. But yeah, it turned off. Any more questions? No? Yes.
So one of my favorite topics is actually instant response whenever I go to conferences and stuff. I actually listened to one speaker who said that he works in a TSSCI environment, so it might be a little different. But he said that rather than the IT team pulling out cables and stuff when they think an infection has occurred on a network, they actually will let them on the network and actually allow them to see if they can, pivot to different systems and more importantly, see what they're going after. If, they're, searching for specific files or data or something like that. Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, so you said, I didn't hear where this person worked, federal government, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a common tactic of the federal government. They'll let things run and, let it go. We will only do that if we have information nowhere and we need to see what they're doing. But in reality, our number one goal is to get a client up and running as quick as possible, recover from it, and just get it back up and running. As well as figure out, what happened, so we can stop it, in the future. But really, it comes down to quickly figuring out what happened, what may have been affected. So if there's a chance that it touched DHI, then it gets into a longer process, or whatever it may be. But then, for instance, the Windows 95 people there, they didn't have any confidential information stored on the systems hit or systems that attempted to be hit. So, it's just a matter of figure out what happened so it doesn't keep happening and then just get things back up and running. But no, we typically won't keep things just running on the network unless it's absolutely 100% necessary because, if they're actually inside your network and it's not just an automated program, they can get to, anything. They can get to, if it's a hospital, get to your, EMR or whatever it may be. So we just want to stop it, assuming that it isn't something that we can't figure out. So if, for instance, ransomware, if there's certain traces that this is the same variant of ransomware, then we're like, okay, shut it all down. Well, shut down what you need to shut down, don't shut down everything, please. But if it's, we dealt with a couple pieces of malware where it was brand new. That one. That actually came to us. It was a previous client, and they got a knock on the door from a federal agency, and they actually, initially they actually turned away like, go, you're not. And it actually was a federal agency, not that federal agency. And that one was basically they were sending Word documents, just docx, but it loaded a template file from a Netherlands IP address. So in that case, and there was just nothing on the network, nothing on the system. So we actually let it run in a more controlled environment, just to see what it did, what it was looking for, things like that. So I'm going to answer that question. Any other question? No? Yes?
What's like some of the costs associated with some of the breaches?
If it's a breach, it's a lot. So typically a breach will cost a company about $20 per person that they have to notify. If they are doing identity theft protection, they're mailing, they're doing a call center. So, if you have a 100,000 person breach, it gets pretty expensive. For the actual legal investigation, it's honestly not a ridiculous amount. On average, between legal and, if you do have someone come in, it's probably going to be about 15-ish thousand, depending on the scale, and that might scale up. So it's not ridiculously expensive if you compare it to, a massive breach. That's really where you're going to get hit pretty good. And then Office 365, those specific compromises, if you're in an environment where you have to report breaches, can get pretty expensive too, only because, you know, phishing everybody's getting compromised, therefore report. And in that case, you don't know what they accessed, so you have to report to every single person that's in the email account, or in email accounts, so that's what gets a little bit expensive as well. But typically, the most expensive breaches will be when you don't know who's affected. So in a hospital scenario, if ransomware hits and you can't absolutely disprove that it did not exfiltrate data, and you know your EMR was hit, something like that, you're reporting to everybody who is in that EMR, which is a ridiculous amount of people. Yeah. Stolen laptops too. Those cost a lot. They're not encrypted. Encrypted laptops. Any other questions? Yes.
How often do you guys get law enforcement involved, your firm?
Only with the good stuff. If it's just a simple, like if someone got hit with ransomware the very first time and they don't know what the hell to do, they're going to call us. We're not calling law enforcement. But if it's, you know, like one of the SAM or Matrix that's deploying everywhere, law enforcement's going to be involved. That one, law enforcement's involved. Anything beyond the basics. Typically, what we'll do is we'll say, do you want law enforcement, you know, involved? They will help track down who did this, and it helps their statistics a lot in figuring out if it's big enough, they're actually going to go after it. Typically, what law enforcement won't do, in at least cases that we deal with, they won't actually do the investigation, do the analysis, unless it's something like that one where it's brand new and they don't even know what's going on, but they see it happening places.
Who do you engage? Do you usually call the state police or FBI?
Rarely state level. Usually, most of the time it's FBI that we're engaging. Sometimes, if it's related to fraud, credit card fraud, it's going to be Secret Service. Very rarely do we reach out to Department of Homeland Security. It's mostly FBI and Secret Service. Yeah, Secret Service, in addition to protecting Trump, they deal with counterfeit money. So when credit card fraud's going on, and I'm not 100% positive, that's Secret Services thing. I think I'm right. Might have been told a lie, no, I just think I know it.